Call the millage rate hearing number 2, August 12, 2024 to order. Mr. Gaither, will you please call the roll?
Representing Educational District 1, Ms. Katie Howard.
Present.
Representing Educational District 2, Ms. Loretta Balden. Representing Educational District 3, Dr. Ken Zeff.
Present.
Representing Educational District 4 and Board Vice Chair, Ms. Jennifer McDonald. Representing Educational District 5 and Board Chair, Ms. Erica Mitchell.
Present.
Representing Educational District 6, Ms. Ishay Collins. Representing Educational District at Large Seat 7, Mr. Alfred Shivy Brooks. Representing Educational District at Large Seat 8, Ms. Cynthia Risco Brown.
Present.
Representing Educational District at Large Seat 9, Ms. Jessica Johnson.
Present.
I also want to acknowledge our superintendent is present, Dr. Johnson, as well as our general counsel. And with that being said, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. Now we entertain a motion to approve the agenda of August 12, 2024, millage rate hearing number 2.
So moved.
Moved by Board Member Risco Brown.
Second.
Second by Board Member Jessica Johnson. All in favor? Say aye. Motion carries. Any opposed? Motion carries. We will now engage in our second of 3 millage hearing. Dr. Lisa Bracken, we are now ready to hear your presentation.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Board Chair Mitchell, members of the board, Dr. Johnson. Today, we are holding the second of 3 public hearings to approve the FY 2025 millage rate. We're recommending to maintain the millage rate at 20.5 mils. This is the same millage rate as last year and is the lowest millage the district has had in at least the last decade. However, because that rate is being applied to properties that have increased in value by law, we must advertise it as a tax increase. The increased value of the digest due to reassessments is approximately 4.22%. Overall, the digest increased a little over 7%, which is in alignment with our optimistic revenue projections for this fiscal year. APS is heavily reliant on local property taxes to fund many of our initiatives above and beyond the state, what the state provides for, including our Readers or Leaders initiative, and also a steady and sustainable local tax digest helps ensure that we can continue to give competitive compensation to our teachers, such as the 11% increase we were able to provide in this budget. By maintaining a millage rate of 20.5 mils, a property valued at $325,000 with a homestead exemption will experience a tax increase of about $66 annually. And our final hearing will be here this evening at 6 p.m. That concludes my presentation. I can take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Bracken. Please, Mr. Gaither, could you please read the instruction for, oh, you had questions? I'm sorry.
I have one question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do we have any sense yet of what percentage of properties assessments are being appealed? Because that's, of course, the number one way to keep property values lower is to make sure that your property is being assessed at an appropriate value. Do we know? I know those were due last week. Do we know?
I don't have that information yet. We do always build into our assumptions a high rate of appeals, and so we'll watch those work through the process. And then, of course, you mentioned appeals. Again, leveraging those homestead exemptions. The 2 new homestead exemption bills came out this past year that we are hopeful that will give some relief as well going into the next few years.
We support those bills.
The inflation cap, I think we need to talk about that. The inflationary cap, we've seen where other districts have been very impacted by that, especially as inflation continues to outpace our spend, and it's also as we continue to increase compensation well ahead of a percentage increase in inflationary prices. So we do need to talk about that and think about that more going into this budget session. The homestead exemption for seniors with the $10 million cap, absolutely, I think is one that we can support.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and I do have a question. How have we communicated this with our seniors in our communities? What channels have we establish or try to push out this communication? And I will tell you, last Tuesday I was at in the Collier Heights area, also Collier Park area, and that was a big concern for our seniors. And that prompted me to hosting a meeting just for our seniors to understand what this means for them. I know I've gotten a couple of emails here and there, but I mean, as a board, because we know in certain areas, it impacts certain people, certain demographics differently. What have we done as a district to ensure that it's being communicated and that they understand what this process is and how it's going to impact their property?
Yeah. So for the millage rate process, we haven't done much more than we typically do, which is to hold the advertisements, hold the hearings, and put together our FAQs on our budget website. I do think that there's a real opportunity for us to lean in as the new bills go to referendum in November to communicate and educate on what those bills could offer in relief, especially the senior homestead exemption bill, and encourage our seniors to take advantage of that. So I'll work with our communications team, our engagement teams to make sure that we are communicating those bills as they go into referendum in November.
And just keep in mind that a lot of our seniors are not on internet. So what other means do we have to communicate this with them? I know a lot of them go to the senior centers for activities throughout the day, just different type of ways to channel this information to them if they're not on social media or the internet. And a lot of them, their grandkids or great-grandkids might be in APS, but they're not so much involved in that, so they are not getting these notices and different things. So I just look at it, how do we really truly communicate what we're doing to a demographic that is not, a lot of them not on social media, a lot of them not on the internet. They're used to receiving something in the mail, receiving a phone call, or in person.
Yeah, I appreciate that feedback. Our ads are also in the AJC. They run in the actual physical paper, but we'll make sure that going forward, we find more outreach opportunities.
Thank you. Any questions? Board Member Howard?
Not so much a question, but just to piggyback on what you're sharing, Chair Mitchell. And of course, we're going to do that meeting together. As Budget Commission Chair, I offered to go out in the community and just talk about the board's role in this and share information that we'll certainly share back with you, Dr. Johnson, in advance so that the team can contribute. But opportunities to work with partner organizations that are pushing out this information to seniors. And we know Fulton County has a large role in that as well as DeKalb. So just how we all work together to really push out the information, and maybe almost a question-answer sheet that we can even have to hand out to the community when we go out. So really appreciate all the work that's already been done. Dr. Johnson, thank you so much for the breakdown you gave explaining that this is the same millage rate. But yes, there have been increases in property values, which we know affect people across the city of Atlanta, and how we're sensitive to that. But, making sure we're explaining what we're using their tax dollar to do and how we're improving student outcomes with that money and how we're looking to shift as well. But obviously making sure they have information about appropriate property tax relief.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we were just discussing, many of our initiatives, like our tax allocation districts, are designed to to make improvements in areas to increase property values. And so we do see a lot of growth that is intentional in areas across Atlanta. And where we are participating in TADs, those dollars, even though we are collecting them through our tax levy, are not used for educational purposes. They do go back to the TAD. For our Fulton County Digest, that's up to 16% of our digest is reinvested back into the TADs and are not eligible for us to use for things like our raises. And so while as long as school districts are dependent upon property taxes and where we are intentionally trying to grow and have a vibrant city, you're going to see this kind of conflict. And so where we can continue to work with our legislators to think about relief and communicate that with our constituents, I think there's an opportunity there.
Thank you. Any more questions? Hearing none. Thank you, Dr. Bracken. Mr. Gaither, would you please read the instructions for the hearing?
Good morning and welcome to the public comment portion of this morning's agenda. In just a few moments, the board will begin hearing from those who signed up to speak by 9:50 a.m. The board welcomes your comments, but before we get started, please take note of the following guidelines on how public comment is conducted. The board is allocated 1 hour for public comment, and each speaker will only be allowed to speak once for a total of 2 minutes. The board may elect to hear community comments in any order or sequence and is not limited by the order of the sign-up sheets. All speakers presenting highly detailed information are asked to put their comments in writing, and comment cards are available for those wishing to do so. In order to maintain meeting decorum, follow appropriate protocols, protect the confidentiality of students, and ensure impartiality, the board will not hear comments on matters involving individual students, parents, or the character, professional competency, or the physical or mental health of any individual. Also, the board will not hear public comment on personnel matters that specifically include the names or titles of employees. This includes, but is not limited to, contract non-renewals, position abolishment, the hiring or firing of staff, and investigative proceedings regarding allegations of misconduct. Comments regarding personnel issues should be sent in writing to Atlanta Board of Education, 130 Trinity Avenue, Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, 30303, or via email at boardcomments@atlantapublicschools.us. Finally, in order to maintain meeting decorum and ensure all comments can be heard by the board, applause, cheering, jeering, or speech that defames individuals or disrupts the meeting should be refrained from and may be cause for removal, adjournment of the meeting, and or suspension from attending future Atlanta Board of Education events, hearings, meetings, and other proceedings. With that being said, I would like to call our first speaker, Ms. Iris Parks, for 2 minutes, followed by Nathaniel Dyer for 2 minutes. Can we make sure the red? Thank you, Lisa. Dr. Brackett. Thank you.
Good morning.
Yes.
My husband and I is in a state of perplexity. We're struggling now to pay $1,899 extra quarterly for medication from cancer with my husband. Now the board is asking us for an increase in taxes. I plead with you to have an alternative method and change your methodology in which you taxate homeowners, especially seniors. At this point, we're looking at having to sell our home because we can't afford it. Excuse me. I have a suggestion. In order to do something different, you've been doing things the same way for years, and it's not working for the seniors. Builders are coming in, building homes, and they're renting them, but their taxation is the same as ours. I feel like they should be taxed more because they have no invested interest in the community, and it's raising our taxes. We have parents who don't have homes, but they live in apartments or they have children. Maybe we need to consider assessing a tax on parents, maybe giving them an investment, making them feel invested with their children education. The homeowners in Fulton County cannot continue to take the burden. We're hemorrhaging, and we're hemorrhaging bad. My husband and I have looked at selling our home, and we can't afford the rent in apartments because with both of our incomes, we can't afford it. We can't afford it. If we go into a senior home, we can't afford that either because the waiting list is 2 to 6 years out. What are we supposed to do, and where is this money supposed to come from?
Thank you so much, Ms. Parks. Our next speaker is Nathaniel Dyer for 2 minutes.
You have to understand that, the jargon that you put out about it's not an increase, it's not, it is what it is. It's painful. It not only hurts seniors, it hurts the children as well. And you know who benefits? Central Atlanta Progress. The same people who are on the boards of your partner schools and your KIPS. Yeah, they benefit. They come in and they construct these huge projects, cranes everywhere, and they inflate the market of housing. They do. How's a house that's 700,000 valued, home value is 700,000, and there's a crack house right beside it? It's inflated. I would say have a heart. Use your imagination. Take a snapshot. There are thousands and more seniors in this city. And not just seniors. You got people in their 30s, 40s who need a break. You know, it's an expensive notion to live in the city of Atlanta. But people are being constantly pushed out, forced to make choices, harsh choices, when they should be living the limelight years on a high level, not crying, not coming to a school board meeting, pleading with elected officials, people who are supposed to be there for the people. You know, this is really taxation without representation. Please represent. Have a heart. You know, all that is the same as this. You know, taxes are out of the wazoo, regardless of how it is. You know, maybe roll it back. Balance it out with where it is, where, hey, there's no increase. I think you said, what, on a $300,000 home, it goes up to 66. Well, negate that. No increase whatsoever. We say no. Have a heart. Thank you. Look out for the children, and let's work together on this for the best interest of seniors and children.
Madam Chair, this concludes public comment.
Thank you. Please note our final hearing and special call meeting will take place this evening at 6 p.m. Now I would like to entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Board Member Briscoe Brown, second by Board Member Johnson. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.